Okay, so I had to redo the dominant species video, one because I wanted to include the gap since that comes before dominant species, but also because there was an error with the table that I needed to correct. So now you'll be able to run and get the results that you need. So I've already run everything up to line 1023, the canopy gap chart. And in order to create this table, I have to have run chunks of code throughout this entire script. So if you want something that's just for certain parts of the script, go to the GitHub and I have individual versions of each section. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and just run these first 3 lines, getting my data frame ready for my gap. And for this video, I'm only going to run the Sage step. So this SS here. And all these other ones I'm going to skip. Okay, so for your gaps in your canopy cover, you'll see similar results to what we've seen before, where you have your range and your mean for gaps, but also for your canopy cover. And that's per plot. And then there's also a bar chart that goes with it. So run that code up to Sage step. This is assigning the name to the table. Okay, run these 4 lines of code, and in the bottom right, we'll see our proportion, canopy gap, and cover appear in the bottom right. Okay, now onto the dominant species table. So species richness is a part of the table. So we'll go ahead and run Sage step. So nothing needs to be changed in here. You can run all this code. Here we're using LPI to figure or to determine tree and shrub heights. Okay, so now once you get to the first hashtag below using the LPI, so line 1218, then you're going to go ahead and need to make some changes in this indicator. So after DOM grass cover, you'll input any grass species that you have, which for me, for Sage step, in the previous video, we saw was all woody species. So I can delete one of these and just change the other one to NA, like you see in the line below. And make sure that you keep quotations around everything, and that you also have commas before and after everything, except for obviously this last one. Okay, so there's no herbaceous species, and our first woody species was Ardor T, then Arno 4. Okay, so I'm gonna have to add 2 more in here, so I'm gonna do quotes, the name of my species, then a comma, quotes, the name of my species, and then another comma, since there's still more data after here. Okay, so now that should be good. I can go ahead and run my indicator. Okay, so then for species 1, 2, 3, and 4, I need to assign my species name. That's going to be Ardor T, Arno 4, Ardor 8, and Pine. Okay. But then we're also going to need to make some changes here because, for example, under our grass, we shouldn't have any species at all. So we'll go ahead and highlight all of this. And as you see in the line below, we just change it to NA. Okay, so then the woody species, we also need to make some changes because we have all 4 of our species as woody species. So we'll change this 3 to a 1. Scroll over, change species 4 to species 2. Okay, but now I need to add 2 more species. So what I can do is highlight, so after digits equals 2 parentheses, select the column, oops, all the way after the first digits 2 parentheses, not the second one. So then we'll copy that and we'll go ahead and paste it. Change species 2 to species 3. And then we'll go ahead and paste again after that parentheses. And change the species 2 to species 4. Okay, so now, and then always make sure that there's a second parentheses at the end of this. And it'll give you an error if there's not. You'll see a red squiggly. Okay, so now this code is all ready to run up to the first DOM-wood ME. Okay, but now I need to make those same exact changes for max, min, and standard deviation. And the reason why, or I'll show you something in a second, actually. Okay, so changing this first one to NA again. Change this to species 1, species 2, and then I'm going to go ahead and copy after the digits 2 parentheses. Okay, and the reason why I always copy the same line is because you'll see that this code is a little bit different than the code above because we're making different calculations. So to avoid any errors, I would just copy from the exact same line. Okay, so now I'm going to change species 2 to species 3 and paste my final species, change species 2 to species 4. Okay, now that one's ready to run. All right. Make the same changes here. Okay, and also something with this code is throughout this entire section, you want to make sure that you always put everything in the exact same order as what you put on the indicator. So my species 1, 2, 3, and 4 have to go in the same order as my indicator species, however I wrote it out in my indicator species. Okay. Oops. Okay. So now that one's ready to run. Alrighty, and this is our last one to change. And this one's going to look a little bit different because we're calculating margin of error here. So that 1.282 is our z-score to have us calculate margin of error. Okay, but I still need to do the same thing. So changing species 3 to species 1. And then you'll see that you have the same basic setup, so comma, round, and then at the very end of each line, we'll have a digits equals 2 parentheses. So now with the round, we know we're starting another species. So I'll change that one to 2, and then again, copy the comma all the way to after the first parentheses at the end. Copy that, paste to change to species 3. Paste again, change to species 4. Okay, now that line's ready to run, and we should be ready to run our entire table. Okay, so nothing needs to be changed here. with the mean equals, minimum equals, maximum equals, standard deviation, margin of error. Okay, so now we're creating a data frame of those. And you can just run all these lines of code. And we'll get our table over here on the right. So we can zoom in on this, just make sure that there's no errors that we could have possibly made. Just make sure that this all looks correct. And we do want to make sure that our grass cover and herb cover both say NA. We got our correct species here. It is calculating a %. And it doesn't look like any duplicate lines or anything, so everything looks good. Now, if you want to export this, because sometimes the table is too long to just take a photo of or a screenshot of, then you'll go ahead and run this next line, which will send it to a CSV, which is basically an Excel document that you can edit. It does unfortunately get rid of the formatting, but you'll be able to see everything exactly the same as you see here. So, except for like the bold and italics and stuff. So now after I run that code, I can check in here in my documents, and I'll see that it did export it with the name SS sum tab. And also, this gets sent to whichever folder you have your directory set up to be. And so if you're using my exact same code, mine is sending it to my documents. If you made an edit to change the folder that this file is pulling information from, then it'll be located in whatever that file is. Okay, so I'm not going to run any more of these, and that is the end of the code. Yeah, thanks.